City Council meeting for January 15th, 2009 is called to order. Everyone rise for the, for the pledge, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. First, I'd just like to welcome Jeff Knighton tonight. It's been a long process, and I appreciate his being here. I appreciate staff and all our employees and all our residents bearing through this process, and I especially appreciate the council coming through with what should be a great decision. So thank you, Jeff, for attending, and we'll hear from you later tonight, I believe.
Sounds good.
So,
Thank you.
okay, does anyone have any changes to the agenda? Okay, hearing none.
Excuse me, I'm sorry. There is one short late change. I believe we have a quarterly report from Director Gregory on the biosolids.
Yes.
Biosolids report.
That'll be
at the end.
Okay, thank you. Okay, council reports. I'll start with,
Pledge allegiance, we're gonna do, oh, we already did that, didn't we? Sorry, forgive me.
don't challenge
Go
me,
right
please.
on, man, you're doing great.
Okay. Council reports. We'll start with Councilmember Dorsey tonight.
All right. Well, on January 3rd, let's see, January 3rd, January 5th. Anyway, we went to a workforce housing summit at Alderbrook. A very good summit. Learned a lot of things there that hopefully we can implement someday. Went to the Homes for Troops ceremony out here on the Vic King Road for a young man that was badly injured. And they built him a fantastic home out there, a beautiful place. And the volunteers from our community was one of the best that the Homes for Troop people have ever seen. I was glad to be just a small part of it. We had our study session last week, and then today I had a one-on-one with Jeff, and that concludes my report.
Thank you, Councilmember Nisco.
I also attended the Homes for Our Troops on Saturday the 5th, and it was a great, there was over 200 people attended that. On the 8th, we attended the legislative send-off out at the Old Brook. I had a Lions Club meeting on Wednesday. We had our tiny homes tour on Friday. Yesterday, I attended briefly the welcome reception for Jeff. Thank you, and welcome.
And welcome.
And tomorrow, I have a Housing Behavioral Health Advisory Board meeting. And Thursday, I have a meeting with Jeff. And Friday night, I'm attending the Chamber Awards Gala auction. Or not auction, I'm sorry, Gala Award.
Councilmember Kranz.
Yes, well, last week I did also go with this council to inspect a possible site for the tiny homes. And we went out there and took a look at that. Tomorrow I will be meeting with our new city manager for a little bit to get to know him. Also tomorrow I'll be attending my criminal justice board meeting. I've been having several discussions with citizens about several city projects, and so also we had a study session last week.
Okay, thank you. My last couple of weeks, besides some of the things mentioned, attended the dedication for Sergeant Franklin's home. That was, like Eric said, a very moving experience and a great addition to our community, even though it's not technically in town. I also attended the yacht club, invited to the yacht club. All I can pass on the council and the staff, they're very appreciative of the diligence we did on that and the time turnaround to get that completed. And they're looking forward to a great partnership with this community with their new yacht club, or their own yacht club, I should say. Moving ahead, next couple weeks, I'm attending Mayor's Exchange next week in Olympia, and also attending the Chamber Gala Friday. Deputy Mayor?
Thank you. I also attended the Workforce Housing Summit held at Alderbrook, the Chamber's legislative send-off. Last week, we had both the study session about tiny homes as well as the site visit. And yesterday, we had our welcome reception for Jeff, followed by a meeting today, and thank you for the time meeting me this morning. And this Friday, I have my Peninsula RTPO quarterly meeting, so look forward to reporting back on that.
Councilmember McDowell?
Last week, I went to Christmas Village and met with the residents up there to discuss the tiny homes that will, a possibility going across the street from them. I had my Lions Club. I met with a business person here in town to discuss the tiny homes, took a tour of the property on Friday. We had a reception welcoming our new city manager yesterday, and tomorrow I have my first meeting with him. I have my Board of Health next week, Memorial Hall Board, and I will be helping with the DIT, what do you call that, Bob? DIT?
Point in time count?
Point in
Point in
time,
time.
point in time, excuse me. That they will be doing at the Memorial Hall for the veterans on Friday, the 25th. And that's it.
Thank you. Councilmember Schmidt?
Good evening. Last but not least, in addition to ... all the other organized meetings, I attended the monthly EDC board meeting, and that is it last Thursday. That's
Okay.
all I have.
Thanks, sir.
Thank you.
Okay, next we have time for general public comment. So if you would like a comment, you need to fill out a card and hand it to Donna. And when you come forward, please state your name and whether you're a city resident, and you'll have 3 minutes, up to 3 minutes. Donna?
First is Leela Stevens.
Evening.
First time speaking. I'm Leah Stevens, and I'm a citizen of Shelton. I live 5 minutes from the proposed village, the tiny house village site, up on Sherwood Lane. I have multiple concerns, only because I don't have, there's questions out there, I'm sure that are still out there, and I know they haven't all been answered yet. But I have, personally, I have multiple concerns due to the history of the homeless vets, having the drug and mental ill issues. How will the village be monitored to sustain a sober and clean environment for them? My other concerns are closeness to the schools, the children, the surrounding neighborhoods, popular walking path, increased soliciting, increased property taxes, increased crime, and the financial burden to the town's infrastructure. The group cannot guarantee all their safety. The village in Olympia is not across the street from a school and in the middle of a neighborhood. And aren't the vets better served when they are closer to their support systems? And how many other locations, maybe in Mason County, were even considered? Personally, I just right now feel that we're being taken advantage by this PANSA group. There has not been public notice other than for the proposal, except that what I've been reading in the paper because we buy the journal. I know about the journal. I know a lot of people that don't have any clue that we even have a local paper. And I suppose there's social media, but not everybody does social media. It's in my neighborhood, and I went door to door on some of my neighbors, and they really have no clue. So I think we, the council needs to communicate more with the surrounding neighborhood. And I just heard you did go to the Christmas Village. Basically it comes down to that we need the respect for this village. If it's going to go in, we need to be totally informed, the outcomes, the goals, and how is it going to be safe for our community before it is put together, if you decide to do so. Thank you.
Thank you, Leila.
Next, we have Randy Lewis.
Hi, everybody. Randy Lewis. Let us talk about the vision for our community. My concern for years has been that several entities in our community have conducted planning largely independently, In my view, this is not sufficient. For there to be a proper vision, including proper analysis, I believe requires an effort consisting of all entities in the community. Before conclusions are made, a discussion is required of the philosophical underpinnings of what we want to be as a community. A recent speaker at a chamber event, Dr. Ali Medeiros, said as much in his presentation. I probably butchered his name. He suggested the community reevaluate what makes us special. He suggested that our community might be ideal as a bedroom community. What I keep hearing is, we need growth, we need development. Fine, but what kind of growth do we want consistent with a philosophical discussion by the entire community? My question about growth and development is, for what purpose? I personally reject the notion that we need growth to fund the several governmental bureaucracies. So we achieve growth, then we need additional bureaucracy, then more growth, and on and on. In my business, we call this a death spiral. Recently, a member of the local media told me that downtown Shelton is a ghost town. What is the vision? Developing Mountain View, therefore abandoning downtown to continue on its glide path to becoming a ghetto? For those entities that want to develop Mountain View, prove to me, prove to the community that you have your vision act together downtown first and fill the empty spaces that exist there before you circle around pieces of dirt on Mountain View. The particular lot designated for the tiny home project has been an empty piece of dirt for years. How many more years before a business builds on that lot? 5, 10, 20? No one knows. Before you claim you do, talk to Microsoft employees who doubled down on their stock options or entities that sold credit default swaps. When the tiny homes project is built, the city immediately accrues revenue for whatever building fees are assessed, along with continuing taxes, utility fees, etc. Even so, let us be clear. The city government is not a business. It is a monopoly. City assets are owned by the citizens for the benefit of the community, not for the city government, for the benefit of the bureaucracy. With respect to the tiny homes, the desires of the bureaucracy are subordinate to the needs of these homeless veterans. Thank you.
Thank you, Randy.
That's all we have, Mayor.
Okay, thank you, Donna. Okay, we'll move on to the consent agenda. Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda as published?
I move to approve the consent agenda as published.
Second.
Yeah, we have a motion to approve the consent agenda as published. All those in favor, aye? Aye. Opposed? Okay, consent agenda is accepted. Next, we'll move on to our business agenda, which has 2 items. And we do take public comment on specific to each item.
I don't.
Okay, thank you, Donna. Okay, so the first item on the business agenda tonight is interlocal agreement with Mason County. Our new city manager, Jeff Knighton, has details along with Todd Parker, who is the Mason County Housing and Mental Health Program Coordinator.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor, members of council, and members of the public. Tonight, the interlocal agreement before you is agreement between Mason County and the city of Shelton. And it's a requirement of the affordable housing for all. It's the RCW is cited in your packet that relates to that requirement. This agreement has been vetted by the Housing and Behavioral Advisory Board, which the city of Shelton participates in with one of our council members. And Mr. Parker is here and available to answer your questions if need be. Thank you.
Thanks, Jeff.
I don't have any questions.
Any questions, comments from council for Jeff or Todd? Okay, hearing none, are we in agreement to move ahead as an action item for February 5th? All right. Next item is recommendation from Lodging and Tax Advisory Committee, and I guess I will present that from here unless someone has any disagreements. Our committee consists of myself, David Daly from the Mason County Historical Society, Dwayne Wilson from Christmas Town Kiwanis, and 2 hotel owners in town who did not attend the meeting, but are on the committee. Your packet outlines the requests from our community and the committee's decision on what to grant this year. It's pretty straightforward. The only comment I will make is the one grant from Shelton Mason County Chamber of Commerce for Downtown Visioning Committee. Those are for highway signs. Those were in last year. They were not completed, and I think they've actually been in a couple years. So that funding was not used last year, so that's basically refunded for this upcoming year after the committee had some questions. So that's one reason why the amount is slightly over what we expect in revenues, because we were under last year. So, questions for Councilmember Brown?
So, oh, I'm sorry. Did someone have? I'm
I did
sorry.
have my hand
I'm
up.
sorry.
Thank you. I sat on that committee for 6 years, and it is, it was a great board to be on, and it's a way of funding a lot of volunteer activities and groups, and I just wanted to recognize that they lost one very dedicated member, I believe this past year, that Annette McGee passed away. And I don't know how long she was on that one, but if she wasn't on that one, she was on something else, and then she was on something else. And so the community lost a very, very wonderful volunteer and active person. She was, we didn't always agree, but she definitely deserves the respect of everybody. And so I just want to, just say that we lost a very good member on that board, and that as one going through this every year, I trust the recommendations that they are putting forward.
Councilmember McDowell?
So the 13,000 was for the signs,
The highway signs,
highway
correct.
signs. Now, was there a reason why that was not worked on, or is it a project in process, or?
The chamber already has quite a few businesses already signed up, checks in hand.
Okay.
That process did not get completed last year.
Okay.
Got completed late in the year. So they're, I talked to Heidi, and I'm not sure where they're at, but they're close to almost all the signs being claimed.
Okay.
So, and this would be, the grant is for the purchase of the signs. The businesses are responsible for, I think it's about $700 a year to rent the space from Department of Transportation.
Do you know how many signs there are?
There should be 10 new ones. There's 2 already, this is for Railroad Avenue, there's 2 existing, so there'll be 10 spots for 10, up to 10 new ones.
Is
I
any of those
believe-
going out off the freeway? They should come off onto,
Railroad.
yeah, is there any for that area to show people that there's some businesses in town?
That's where these signs, these are for the railroad exit,
Okay,
Railroad Avenue
very
exit.
good,
Northbound
okay,
and southbound.
yes,
okay, thank you.
okay. Councilmember Schmidt.
Mayor, just a quick question on clarification on LTAC. These grant dollars, these are sort of reappropriated from our special hotel motel tax, correct?
Correct.
Okay.
Okay.
That's it.
Any
Thanks.
questions?
Well, and just a note, as I mentioned to the mayor, I anticipate I will not be voting on this item, as I do work for the Chamber of Commerce, so I will be happy to answer any questions that I may, but will not be taking a vote on this one.
Okay. And I will mention one thing, I have talked to, both the committee has some new ideas and also talked to some of our major fund users, so you may see some things proposed differently in the upcoming year, and we will probably get the council involved, and so at least some of the council involved in some of those discussions. So just to give you a heads up on that. So,
Last 2 cents, I did want to recognize Council Peterson in not voting on a subject that she is personally involved in. It shows a intelligence and a respect for the process. And so I think that's, this is an example that we can all follow. If there's something you're personally involved in, that sustaining from a vote doesn't mean you're voting yes or no. It's just the right thing to do.
thank you. Okay, so do we have consensus to move this forward to action item February 5th?
Yes.
All right, thank you. Okay, next we move on to our action agenda for tonight. And this again, we'll have take comments on each item if there's people who,
I don't have any.
okay, thank you, Donna. Okay, so the first action item is Public Works Greg Gregory, sorry, Craig.
Well, you botched that one.
Greg, Greg.
He's new.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Going to speak about 2019 design and construction standards.
Thank you, Mayor and council members. As we discussed a few weeks back, the annual update to design and construction standards. Again, we did not print you out the entire design and construction standards book. It is a fairly lengthy read if you want to read through the entire thing. We did give you some of the highlights and things that would have an effect as far as cost goes to either development or an individual applying those standards to. So I think we did go over these a couple of weeks ago, anything that would be affected and discuss those, but certainly if you have any questions, I can certainly try to answer those to the best of my ability.
Okay, do we have a motion regarding the construction standards?
I move to accept the proposed revisions to the City of Shelton design and construction standards.
Second.
Okay, discussion or questions?
I think we covered this fairly in length last time, so I don't have any additional questions at this time.
Councilmember Schmidt?
Thank you. Just curious on the communication typically on how this works with the building community. How do you guys communicate change typically?
Completely honest with you, in the past, I don't think we have.
Okay.
I think we certainly can get something out through Andy Arnaz, our communications specialist, and communicate those changes out through social media and have a release on at least this page that would affect any future development, and we will certainly be committed to doing that.
Excellent.
Okay.
Thank you.
Anything else for Craig? Okay, we have a motion and a second to accept the proposed revisions to the City of Shelton design and construction standards. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, motion carries. Okay, next, back to Craig to give us information about an MTA grant extension.
Thanks again, Mayor. Just one thing to point out before we do get started with discussion of this agenda item. We are asking that the council waive the three-touch rule. This is something that is fairly time-sensitive as far as moving forward with a schedule for all parties involved. So I just will point that out. Certainly, if you do not feel like you want to take action or have enough information after this discussion, we can certainly move it to the action agenda for what would be 3 weeks down the road. But it is fairly time sensitive. This is an agreement that we entered into several years back in 2014. And basically at that time, we were agreeing to just be a pass-through. It was a grant opportunity that MTA could not apply for themselves. It had to be applied for by the City of Shelton, and we did that through an agreement with MTA for the development and repaving of, or not repaving, the paving of the gravel parking lot, basically that's situated at 6th and Railroad. You've got that vacant dirt, it's a mud puddle right now, lot that they are utilizing at this point. They did do some initial upgrades to that, some graveling of the parking lot before ultimately understanding that they needed some permits to move forward with that project. Originally, they after entering into this agreement, they pulled back when they figured out they had some environmental issues, more extensive environmental issues than they first anticipated. They are now back on track. We're hoping they've got Mason Conservation District doing design work for them. So the change really is just the amendment to this, extending the time period. There has been also a change with the City of Shelton's involvement with this and my comfort level. Originally, we were just going to be simply the pass-through. We didn't really have any involvement with the design, the bid documents, the construction inspections, anything of that sort. At this point, I have changed that focus just a little bit. We are certainly going to be involved from now moving forward. The prep of the bid documents they're going to use our format. Mason Conservation District is going to do the first draft of it. We will modify that and finalize it for distribution, and then moving forward, the actual bid prep and acceptance will be done by us, and also construction design or inspection will be done by us and our staff with the city of Shelton also. MTA has agreed to pay for any expenses that come out of that. So they have agreed to pay for all of that effort that we are going to do to make sure that process is taken care of and done properly. That was one thing. Being just a pass-through, I wasn't comfortable with just having them run this through our books and run this through us, just in case in the future we had some sort of issue that then came back to reflect badly on us, whether it be not following bid law, construction standards, whatever it might be. So that was the reason for the change of really just being the pass-through to having a more active role in this entire project.
Okay, thanks, Greg. Okay, do we have a motion?
I move to approve the extension of the grant for the MTA parking lot and authorize the Public Works Director, Craig Gregory, to sign amendment number 1 to the agreement with the Department of Ecology.
I second that.
Second.
Okay. Discussion.
Just a comment. During the EDC board meeting, the general manager of MTA, Danette Brandon, talked about a couple projects and their excitement moving some projects forward with the park and ride at the Pear Orchard, and this being one of the projects downtown, just in concert with all of the other pavement improvement projects that are going on right now. I am very supportive of helping move this along as well. So.
Councilman Kersey.
Yeah, Joe's correct. I just came from the Mason Transit Authority Board meeting, and where they displayed the diagrams of these new, and they look nice. The park and ride out here at the Pear Orchard is gonna be much better than it is right now. And there's some at Pickering, and there's some at the Cole Road, and Belfair, and I mean, they're doing a lot of work right now. And it looks nice.
I have one question. Who will be actually doing the contracting? Who will be on the contract for the work? I mean, I know a contract will, but as far as on our end, is it the city? Is it the conservation district?
As far as inspections,
Well, as far as who will be doing the contract?
Managing.
managing the contract will be the city of Shelton.
And-
It will be Public Works staff.
Okay,
Yes. That is one requirement moving forward with this extension that I didn't want to, I had a real issue with relinquishing
right, understood.
those responsibilities to somebody else, basically running them through the city of Shelton's books.
Okay.
I wanted to make sure that we were involved, and that was one of the agreements that we had moving forward with this project, is that they would cover the cost of staff to take care of that from the city of Shelton.
Okay,
Yes.
Also, Mr. Mayor,
yes, sir.
I was mentioning it to Jeff before, and you guys need to hear this, and Craig, Mark. Danette would like to be invited to an upcoming meeting to show everyone these diagrams.
That'd be great.
Their aerial view, and so she's excited about showing everybody.
Okay. Any other questions or comments? Okay, we have a motion and a second to approve the extension of the grant for the MTA parking lot. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, motion passes. Okay, on to administration reports. Jeff, would you like to start, or would Craig do the biosolids first?
I'll have Craig talk about the biosolids first, and then I'll keep it short.
Thank you. So, as the council wanted Public Works to come back with quarterly reports for biosolids revenue. We finished up, this is actually the annual report, finishing up the fourth quarter. We wanted to really demonstrate to you who we've actually got under contract now, and what the intake from them has been. So this is through December of 2018. So you can see that it's a substantial amount of biosolids that we did take in. We took in just short of 2 million gallons this year, which produced about 143 tons of dried fertilizer that we have gotten rid of out into the community, and a total revenue of just over $213,000 for 2018.
Where's Tamashan?
That is great.
Down south Thurston County.
Never heard of it.
I had the same question. I'll be honest with
I'll have to
you.
go home and look it up.
Been there.
Yeah.
And you anticipate this growing over next year?
We've got a couple of other entities that have reached out to us here in the last month or so that are asking for agreements also, so I'm guessing that you'll see those in the future. We haven't necessarily gone out and advertised necessarily that we're doing this. It's kind of word of mouth at this point. But I don't see why it wouldn't continue to grow. It has grown quite a bit over the last couple of years, so I wouldn't anticipate that with the restrictions and guidelines that are coming down from DOE as far as land applying and restrictions on that. I certainly don't see it decreasing at all, but tough to tell at this point.
As it grows, maybe in the near future, we should probably talk about what we're gonna do with this money, whether we pay down debt, sewer debt, or we don't raise rates or lower rates with this money. I know some has to be put aside for maintenance and operations of the equipment, but I think in the near future, we should probably talk about this. I mean, if it ends up being $500,000 a year, I mean, that could really lower our debt down quite a bit.
That would be a discussion maybe with the finance department and FCS group again.
Yeah. Councilmember Carnes.
He, I'll call him Eric, talked about that I assume that we are, because putting some money aside for the repair of that big machine, because is that machine, it was, in the beginning, it was having quite a few belts breaking, a lot of problem stuff, but does it seem to be running pretty good, you know?
No, so most recently, our warranty has expired within the last few months. Just since the warranty expired, we have had a conveyor issue. We have had a drum issue within the dryer, fairly expensive unit to fix. And at this point, no, we do not have, at least not to my knowledge, that we have a fund or a reserve to that dryer unit or the biosolids building itself. So that is all coming out of any expenditures that we may have in the future.
I would highly recommend that this council, and I probably would imagine we'd all agree to this, that we take a portion of this money and we set that fund up. I mean, we can't, you know, it's exciting to see the numbers you make, but then you always got to have some maintenance money for some of this stuff. And so I think it's important that on this one, especially where it's such a wealth builder, that we do take some of that out in a reserve fund for maintenance and repairs.
That will have to be a discussion we will have to have with city manager and finance department of how we do that. And I know creating funds within funds are always a little difficult. So yeah, just planning for that maintenance, we'll certainly have that discussion.
Councilmember McDowell.
I know this is a pleasant question to ask, but can you tell us the approximate cost in the recent repairs, or just the ones that are needing to be repaired now? You haven't a
I
clue?
would be guessing at this point. I would have a hard time. I can bring that back and then at the next either
I would
study
like to know
session or
that.
council meeting.
Please,
Certainly.
thank you.
Bob?
Go ahead.
Is my understanding that we are not running at anywhere near capacity that we could handle down there? Is that correct? I mean, we can handle more.
Through just the biosolids program?
Yes, yes,
That's correct. So the main plant itself, this does not affect the solids
Correct.
load on the main plant.
right.
But the main plant is running fairly close to capacity at this point with.
Right, the
within
main
80%.
plant, I'm talking about biosolids.
This biosolids process, no, we are nowhere near. We're running one shift, one 10-hour shift.
Yeah, so
Um,
we
so
haven't added
certainly-
any more people to that.
That's correct. We
and
did ask.
Probably won't need to for a while.
Well, through the budget process this year, we did identify that it would be nice to have another shift. It would certainly cut down on costs to us. It's quite an expense to start the dryer up every day. So if we could run that dryer for, let's say, 20 hours a day.
So there's a
even
warm-up
3 or
time.
4 days a week.
Yeah.
There's that warm-up and shutdown period.
Correct. I
So
got
we
the
did
same
ask
thing.
for an additional employee this year, a maintenance person.
Yeah,
Which is our lowest level employee, and that did not get funded. So that is something to reduce cost. If we ran it longer, it
Correct.
certainly would reduce cost and maintenance issues.
so we will get better. That's what I see, we will get better at this and produce a little more.
And we
But there's
certainly-
still gonna be costs involved, I understand,
Yeah,
so.
and we're probably right now, we're probably at about 40% capacity as far as intake goes. So if
Okay.
you extrapolate that out of what revenue could actually be, we
Yeah.
certainly could increase that.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Councilmember Shank.
And I would absolutely agree with my fellow council members on setting some cash aside when we can to take care of our assets. And I think it absolutely plays into the bigger picture of just a comprehensive asset management plan for the things in the city. So when we have these, whether it be sewer, water system, pumps, et cetera, cop cars, we should make sure that we have a plan and the funds, strategically set aside so we can maintain. So, thanks.
And I'll just dovetail on that and ask Craig, when we went through that study with the FCS study on sewer and water rates, there was still some things we need to address in that, correct? As far as long-term capital replacement?
That is
Which,
correct.
which basically, what you're talking about, the dryer, we still have some issues there, long-term, just within sewer and water.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, okay. Okay, anything else for Craig on that? Okay, thank you for the update.
You're welcome.
Okay. City Manager Jeff Knighton, please.
Thank you. I have found my office, and I've found the council chambers, so I feel very successful at the moment. We'll see if we can continue, see if I can continue that. I've met a lot of people in the city so far, and I'm going to continue to do that throughout the week. I've had a very warm welcome from everybody I've met with so far, and I appreciate that. And we will be looking at some of those issues that were discussed tonight and making sure that we set the city up for future success and that we're able to implement the council goals and ideas and policies as they are developed and as we move forward. And I appreciate the opportunity. I'm looking forward to working with all of you.
Okay,
Thank you.
Jeff.
Thank you.
I think we all share your interests. Okay, we'll move on for new items for discussion. I know Councilmember Krantz has something.
Yeah, I just wanted to say that I really appreciated the lady's comments that came and spoke, the public comment there about the tiny homes for veterans. And what I think is real important, that if we have information that, the question, if we were to build this tiny homes project and where we would build it, that if we have answers for those questions, we really need to use every media outlet that we can to make sure that the public is informed about it. Because some people don't get the paper, some people don't listen to the radio. I mean, I'm not asking for airdrops, leaflets, but I do, and people don't read the community bulletin it's just, and that I think we already know the answer to almost all of her questions, and I think they almost were satisfying answers to her about clean and sober, things like that. So I do think that it's important, if we have information, that we should get it to the community as we move forward through this process. Because usually lots of things happen and it takes a couple of years to get something together and then all of a sudden, when you're just about ready to go through it, people said, we never heard. Well, you kind of got to, it's our responsibility to get the message out. And if people aren't reading the paper, if they're not watching TV or listening to the radio, then guess what? There's some other way. So I think it's important that we let people know that if this is a site, what information we have should be out to the public. I mean, that's what I kind of think. So it's just a well-informed public makes the decisions a little bit, the questions get answered, and I think it just makes the process not look like we just all of a sudden did this. I've been talking about this particular subject for 2 years through 5 different pieces of property. So there's a lot of questions and things, and veterans only maybe, and clean and sober. And so I think that it's up to us to make sure we communicate that to the public as we move forward, that we got to step up our game a little bit on how we do that, I think. And so that's just my comments about that issue, so.
Okay, thank you, sir. Any- Councilmember Schmidt?
Fully agree with Councilmember Kranz, and actually, I'd like to propose that we just have some sort of a community open house or something in February, and invite members of the public out here, and we can have the right people in the room and discuss that. So whatever we can do, let's full steam ahead on that. I think it's a great idea.
Okay. We'll talk with our city manager about that.
Sounds
Yeah.
great.
Okay.
Lay it on his shoulders.
Anything else? All right, we're ready to adjourn, so our next meeting will be Tuesday, February 5th at 6 PM. We are adjourned.